From the Tri-State's news and weather leader, this is 14 News.
The University of Evansville honoring the ACEs today on the 45th anniversary of the plane crash.
The FDA is considering making changes to its blood donation criteria.
And the Vanderburg Humane Society has hit a big milestone in reducing animal overpopulation. Good evening, I'm Randy Moore.
And I'm Brianne Boswell. 45 years ago today, a plane carrying the University of Evansville men's basketball team crashed, leaving 29 people dead. Today, UE is honoring them with 2 memorial services. The next service is in an hour, but right now we have Mitch Carter live on campus at that crash memorial. Mitch, describe the services that happened today to us.
Yeah, well, Randy, Brianne, right now I'm on Memorial Plaza, and on either side of me here, as you can see, is that memorial where this morning's ceremony was held. The folks who were here listened to the 29 rings of the Freedom Bell, as they do each and every year, honoring those 29 people who were killed.
And 45 years ago, we as a university and as a community, we had our hearts broken.
In memory of those gallant and devoted men who gave everything they had, even life itself, to the sport and to the university they loved. Those are the words inscribed on the memorial dedicated to the 29 people who lost their lives on December 13th, 1977.
Raymond Comandella, freshman, Munster, Indiana.
As that bell rang, onlookers in the crowd bowed their heads, closed their eyes, or wiped away tears. In attendance were some family, friends, and members of the community. Elena Doherty, a UE women's basketball player who was on the team when the plane went down, remembers what that day was like.
We heard that there was a plane crash, and wasn't long after that, and it was rumored that it was the University of Evansville men's team.
Doherty remembers leaving practice in a time before cell phones and other technology, and looking at her fellow peers as word spread across campus.
It was a very somber. I mean, I can close my eyes and still see everybody just kind of walking around like a zombie. And
looking around at bowed heads as bagpipes sound and the bell rings 29 times. Doherty knows those feelings of loss will always be there.
It's still very raw. I think anybody that was here will tell you that it's just something that never will go away. It's still very, very, very raw.
Even still, in the words of UE President Wallace Graves, just days after Air Indiana Flight 216 crashed into the city's north side, out of the agony of this hour, we will rise.
Now, the service at noon today was only one of 2. Here in less than an hour at 7 p.m., the second service is going to be held at New Chapel here on campus. Right now, our Brady Williams is live there with a preview of what attendees can expect. Brady?
Well, Mitch, there's going to be some new speakers at this event. That's going to include Reverend Cynthia Bum, Kurt Begel, and it's also going to include our own Mike Blake. He actually covered this tragedy when it happened all those years ago. He also put together a lovely story. We aired at 5. You can check that out on 14news.com. But for this one, we're going to be here for it. There's going to be a live stream that you can check out for it. Excuse me, no, there's not. There's actually going to be a documentary that you can stream about it on University of Evansville's website. Excuse me for that. This is starting at 7 o'clock, like Mitch told you, so we're going to be covering that. I'm also speaking with a woman who helped produce a song that was written in honor of the men who died on that day all those years ago. You can check all of that out on 14 News at 10 when I have a full report. But for now, live at the University of Evansville, Brady Williams, 14.
All right, Brady, thanks. Services have been announced for the mother and daughter killed in a crash in Du Bois County. The rosary for Julie Schnell and her daughter Elena will be this Sunday, December 18th. The visitation will also be Sunday, and their funerals will be Monday, December 19th in Jasper. For a full list of times and locations, we have that information at 14news.com. Uncle Rudy's shared on Facebook that the business is closing at the end of the year. The indoor gun range first opened in Evansville in 2015. It's on Plaza East Boulevard. The Post says it was a hard decision. They say COVID, supply issues, and rising costs have made it too difficult to stay in business. They say in part this is not by any measure a joyous decision, as while we have provided a great service and touched many lives in positive ways, we are failing many of you as well by not being able to continue on. There are multiple new operators coming into the market to enjoy shooting sports, and we wish them all the best. They say they're going to have altered hours until they're closing, and we have a full list at 14news.com.
The rain continues to creep toward the tri-state now. Southern Illinois getting a final nice soaking over there. Still west, though, of Interstate 57. But with time, all that rain will continue to move up to the Wabash River around 9 o'clock tonight and into the Evansville metro area here between 9 and midnight. And with that, we may even hear some thunder and see some lightning. 50 degrees is the temperature now. It will stay around 50 through the night. Milder air is streaming in on that south breeze, and we should actually see a rising temperature or steady through the night.
The FDA is considering changing some parameters for blood donations due to continued shortages. Our Steve Mailing spoke with an AIDS resource group in Evansville to get their reactions to the possible policy shift.
That's right, Brianne. The original ban from the FDA was started in 1983 and targeted gay and bisexual men during the AIDS epidemic. Now, the total ban was lifted in 2015 and allowed for them to donate as long as they did not have sexual contact with a man in at least a year. They shortened that to 3 months in 2020 during the pandemic, and now they're considering changing it again.
The Food and Drug Administration is considering a policy that would change their parameters regarding blood donation.
There's a population of folks who are, relatively healthy and able to donate, but because of this one question that they have to answer honestly prevents them from donating, it's adding to the shortage.
Tyler Gillum is the outreach specialist for ARG Evansville. ARG works on educating folks on HIV and providing resources to those who are positive. The original ban from the FDA was based off the AIDS epidemic back in the 80s, and Gillum says not much has changed.
It seems to me that this current ban is still based in stigma. They don't see that we've made a lot of advances, and because of that, there's still a lot of fear, stigma in a lot of people's minds, and it's preventing them from truly understanding the scope of the reality of the situation.
The new policy would allow anyone, regardless of gender or sexual identity, to donate blood as long as they haven't engaged in unprotected sex within the past 3 months. A new questionnaire would be utilized for donation, with questions based off the pilot study the FDA did in conjunction with the LGBTQ community.
We have a better idea nowadays in terms of who's at risk and what the actual risk is.
With the new policy, blood donations could increase by as much as 300 to 600,000 pints of blood a year, according to the Williams Institute at UCLA. With 1 pint of blood able to save up to 3 lives, advocates say that's a lot of lives that could be saved with a change in policy.
Because we're targeting specifically men who have sex with other men only, we're setting aside a chunk of folks who might be eligible to donate, but they're not, just because we're looking at them as being a higher risk.
Well, the new policy is set to be formally proposed within the coming months, but for now, the 3-month benchmark stays in place.
Professionals with River Valley Behavioral Health are giving their time to make a difference in the community. They're offering free classes in mental health first aid in western Kentucky counties. Participants in the 1-day free workshop will learn how to spot and handle mental health crisis. Participants will then receive 3 years of certification in mental health first aid. The liaison for the program says she knows speaking about mental health can be difficult, but is important.
We talk about high blood pressure. Why can't we talk about mental health when we all at one point or another will go through or have gone through a mental health challenge?
To find out how to participate in the next class, visit our website, 14news.com. We're hearing from one of the many people who sheltered in place during the December 10th tornado.
And a local animal shelter is reaching a big milestone.
From the Tri-State's news and weather leader, this is 14 News.
45 years ago, we as a university and as a community, we had our hearts broken.
The University of Evansville community pauses to remember the plane crash that killed their beloved Purple Aces. That story in a moment, but first, a suspect in a weekend murder has been identified. Good evening, I'm Brianne Boswell.
And I'm Randy Moore. Evansville police tell us the person they targeted from the beginning has now been arrested. There he is, 23-year-old Kentar Collins turned himself in and is facing a charge of murder in the shooting death of 25-year-old Jalen Curley. Police say Collins and Curley started talking outside a residence in the 1500 block of Judson Street early Sunday morning. Police say Collins fired shots from inside his car and drove away. Curley was hit several times and died in the street. Collins went to EPD headquarters this afternoon with his attorney and turned himself in.
It's the 45th anniversary of the 1977 crash of Indiana Air Flight 216. The tragedy took the lives of the University of Evansville men's basketball team and their coaches. Throughout the day, the university and members of the community took time to remember the victims and honor their families.
Brady Williams has just returned from the evening commemoration. Brady?
Randy, Brianne, in 45 years, a lot has changed, but for those who were there, it's a memory that's far from distant. At tonight's ceremony, folks who were there when it happened and those who were still young remembered how it's shaped their lives and the community.
14 News' own Mike Blake was there to cover the plane crash in 1977. He told a crowd gathered to remember the victims how he can still remember the moment his boss broke the news to him.
He caught my eye and he said, "It's the aces." From that moment, folks, nothing was ever the same.
He described how over the years it shaped the identity of the university and its athletics. 1999 graduate and former player Kurt Begle was 2 years old when it happened. He described how it affected so many people in his own life, and he gave a message to today's team.
Take a moment. Look at the name on the front of your jersey. You're wearing the Evansville Badge of Honor.
All who remember and all who were there say those 29 victims will always be a part of them.
I'm going to thank God for one. I'm going to thank him again that 45 years ago, that group of players and all the people that I met as a ripple effect were in my life.
Marked a moment of silence to honor when the plane went down.
Here it is.
This was one of two services the university held today. In the morning, a bell was rung 29 times to honor each victim.
Now, this anniversary certainly stirs up a lot of images for people. Randy, you were actually in college when this happened. You've reported on it a number of times, and as an Evansville native, this still hits home.
Yeah, I wasn't at the University of Evansville. I was at Ball State University, but I was a college student, and so I was contemporary with those players. They would be my age today, but I did lose a friend in that crash. He was not a player, he was an athletic trainer. We have his picture right here. This is Mark Knese. Mark and I were together all through elementary school at Harper Elementary, and he was a year ahead of me at Harrison High School. You see that smile on his face? Such a perfect picture of Mark. He was just that exuberant and full of life. We were also Boy Scouts together at Methodist Temple, so I knew him well. As I say, just full of joy, full of life, and it's just hard to believe that as an 18 or 19-year-old, Mark's life ended that way with the 29 people on that airplane. And so I came home. That happened on a Tuesday. I came home for the weekend that Saturday. And you know how it feels when you go to a funeral where someone has died, been taken too soon? Well, imagine that kind of a feeling that covers an entire city. That's the way it was, and it lasted for a very, very long time. So it's important that we pause and remember on a day like today.
All right, then, Randy, thank you for reflecting on those thoughts.
And we have rain moving into the tri-state right now. In fact, the lead edge of that light rain just up to about Evansville, Henderson, Madisonville, getting a good soaking now over southern Illinois. And Owensboro, Boonville, you're next. The showers will make it that way in the next hour or two. Lots of rain moving up from the southwest, and I should say beneficial rain, as it's been a long time since we picked up at least an inch of rain in a 24-hour period. It looks like we are on the path to do that. 50 out there now. Temperatures will stay fairly flat overnight. Now that the rain has begun, we may briefly peak up to about 56 tomorrow afternoon. While we may have a break in the rain in the morning, more showers and possible thunder arrive in the afternoon.
The Henderson City Commissioner celebrated Mayor Steve Austin's retirement with a party tonight. Several city and county leaders came out to thank the mayor for his service. Mayor Austin served 3 terms, totaling 12 years of serving the city of Henderson. The city presented Mayor Austin with the Dedicated Public Service Award and honored him as a tiller of the Red Banks. He says he's proud of how the city has progressed over the years.
It's not me, it's we. And we have a tremendous team on our commission, our supporters, and that's what it takes. And it takes everybody focused on the same outcomes and participating in that focus.
Kind of his passion
Mayor
for the
Austin
city.
has worked with Mayor-elect Bradley Staton for 6 years and believes he's well prepared to lead. Staton will take over as mayor in January.
A new type of meter is coming for Kentucky utility customers. Kentucky Utilities has announced new electric meters to be installed beginning in Lexington and surrounding areas, but will eventually upgrades will reach all of Kentucky's 1.3 million customers. They say the upgrade will give customers a better look at their energy consumption.
From the meter, we're getting energy usage information, just as we do from your meter today. But from a customer's perspective, that same information, they can then correlate it directly to how they may be using energy at home.
The upgrades will be completed in phases. Upgrades are not required and customers can opt out, but fees will apply. Our Western Kentucky counties that use Kentucky Utilities can look for these upgrades beginning in 2024. Changes are coming to Kentucky's sales tax. This begins in January and will affect more than 30 services, including utilities. The changes will now require sales tax to be charged for residential utility services to any place other than your primary residence. Some Kentuckians will see a tax on their sewer, water, and fuel as early as January 1st.
We now have pictures of a suspect from a robbery last week in Evansville. Evansville police have released these new surveillance pictures of the suspect linked to the robbery at the Marathon gas station on Diamond Avenue. You can see he was wearing a sock hat and a sweatshirt with the logo ProFlow. Police say the suspect ran off after the robbery. No one was hurt during the incident, but money was taken from the register. If you recognize him or have any information, call police. Uncle Rudy's shared on Facebook that the business is closing at the end of the year. The indoor gun range first opened in Evansville in 2015. It's on Plaza East Boulevard. The Post says it was a hard decision. They say COVID, supply issues, and rising costs have made it too difficult to stay in business. They say in part this is not by any measure a joyous decision, as while we've provided a great service and touched many lives in positive ways, we are failing many of you as well. Uncle Rudy's will have altered hours until they're closing. We have a full list at 14news.com.
The 2023 Romp Festival lineup has been released. The list of performers include the Old Crow Medicine Show, Hall of Fame members Ricky Skaggs and his band Kentucky Thunder, and Grammy-winning Rhonda Vincent is returning. This is the 12th anniversary of Romp Fest, and Bluegrass Music Hall of Fame and Museum Executive Director Chris Joslin says this event is a milestone in securing Owensboro's place as the bluegrass music destination.
It's really a celebration of bluegrass music and everything that's great about Owensboro in this area, because it's really about hosting people, not just from this area, but from around the region and folks who make this a destination every year.
Tickets are on sale now and prices will increase December 27th. We've posted a link to buy tickets in our story on 14news.com. The festival is set for June 21st through the 24th at Yellow Creek Park in Owensboro.
A new grant coming to Tell City will help the city pave roads. The grant is part of NDOT's Crossings Matching Grant Program. Tell City was approved for just under $900,000 for street paving. In April, the city received just over $100,000, which means they have now received the maximum amount for the Community Crossings grant. Tell City Mayor Chris Kale says the roads are selected based on the need of repair as well as traffic volume.
Well, these improvements mean a lot for our community. People are obviously living here and visiting here. You want to have streets that are, up to grade and, safe to drive on. Streets with a lot of potholes and utility cuts in them become a hazard for people either walking or driving. So we want to make sure we have all the roads safe.
The city hopes to begin paving in late spring or early summer next year. Also out of Tell City, the Giving Wall is ready to go. It's set up in front of City Hall. You can add items to the wall to help those in need. Tell City Mayor Kale asks that any food or goods that are left on the wall are non-perishable and to make sure they're in sealed bags. This is something Tell City leaders have been doing
it's been devastating for our community. It's a small community, and as a small community, you know, we hurt together, and right now we're hurting together.
It's just sad to talk about, and I'm just thankful that there was no more people killed than there were, because this was a deadly tornado.
It's overwhelming. We have seen destruction and we have seen horrific things and disaster. But in the midst of this, we've seen miracles of a community coming together.
People are hurting, reeling, and recovering after deadly tornadoes Friday night. You're seeing video from Dawson Springs. We have team coverage with Randy Moore, Jeff Lyons, and Lisa Feinstein in Dawson Springs, and Samantha Johnson in Bremen. Randy, what are you seeing?
Yeah, hi Jackie, hi everybody. We are just east of Dawson Springs, and our camera is looking east into a neighborhood just decimated by that tornado Friday night. You see that one house standing there, and it reminds us of what our meteorologists also always tell us. Go to the center of your home, go to the lowest level to an interior room. You can see why. That top of that house, just almost gone. The bottom, though, just think about the center there. That might have been a safe place to be, but so much destruction around here. You've seen so many videos. You've seen so many pictures of this tornado over the last 72 hours. Well, Jessica Costello talked to one man in Dawson Springs who says he is just happy to be alive to tell his story.
And people ask me what it was like to go through it and what it sounded like, and I keep telling them words cannot explain it. There's no words that would do it justice.
You try it. Just try and find the words to describe the ruthless storm that killed people you know and love.
And they told us that their daughter's fiance and their oldest kid were sucked up in the tornado. And they still haven't found the two youngest ones. I mean, knowing that you're never going to see them again, it's just unreal.
That's just one of the horror stories that Bill Payne told me. Reliving Friday night, his reaction incredibly raw.
When they said it was heading directly toward us, so we all got into our laundry room over there with pillows and blankets and everything.
Holding their breath, pillows and blankets, providing the tiniest bit of comfort, shielding a family from the piercing debris and the devastating reality right outside of their door.
And I had my rosaries with me, and I just started praying. And suddenly we heard what sounded like a loud train. And the more intense it got, the harder I prayed.
Payne says that's when he and his family grabbed each other's hands.
The next thing I know, it sounded like a bomb went off in the living room.
And what they saw next was indescribable.
Afterwards, I came out here and I kind of looked around and saw the damage in here, and I walked outside and saw all the damage outside, and it looked like someone had dropped a nuclear bomb.
What once made up their small, tight-knit community now scattered across miles.
One of the main things I prayed about was, if I lose everything, I don't care. It's just, please let my family survive. That I cannot replace my family or friends.
Do you feel like God heard your prayer?
Most definitely, most definitely.
The skies have now cleared, the darkness gone, except every time Bill Payne takes a breath.
That's about the only word I can come up with is catastrophic.
In Hopkins County, Jessica Costello, 14 News.
All right, thanks a lot, Jessica. We are in Hopkins County, over in Muhlenberg County. Similar scenes there, especially in the little town of Bremen. This hasn't been confirmed, but Friday night we were getting indications that this intense monster of a storm that was on the ground for more than 200 miles was at its most intense in Little Bremen. All right, Samantha Johnson is there in Bremen for us tonight. Sam, what can you tell us?
Yeah, and Randy, first responders and volunteers are back at Bremen Elementary School here behind us, doing everything they can to help the folks in this small community. Full of emotions. The small community of Bremen, Kentucky, left to recover from chaos. At this home on the corner of Kentucky 81 and Bethlehem Church Road, Kayla Chambers and her family are doing just that.
We were extremely fortunate, and I know how bad it was in other places and just right down the road, so we're just grateful to be out here finding are sentimental items and not anything worse. And I feel so bad for everybody else that wasn't so fortunate.
On Friday, Chambers was home with her family just down the street when the storm struck.
You could just hear the wind, it was just such force, and then it just stopped. Sorry. And that's when I knew I needed to get the kids and we needed to go.
So they quickly moved here, the home of a family friend.
I turned my radio on in the car and looked at the radar, and I seen that it looked like it was coming straight for us. Sorry. The radio come over and it told us that catastrophic damage was to be expected, and anybody in the Muhlenberg-Bremen area needed to take shelter now.
Chambers says her family then rushed to a neighbor's home across the street and, along with 20 other people, took shelter in the basement just as the storm moved into Bremen.
If it wasn't for them letting us in, we see it's 300 feet.
Now, this ravaged community taking it piece by piece.
So we're just here trying to salvage all the sentimentals that we know that he would really appreciate to have.
A little appreciation goes a long way here these days. A community rallying around one another, speaking volumes of the people here in Bremen, Kentucky.
We're really lucky to live in a place like this where people are caring and willing to help each other out.
Now, I am happy to report that Chambers tells me her home was barely touched and all of her family members are. She also tells me if you were watching from other parts of the tri-state tonight, what they need the most are your thoughts and prayers. I'm reporting live in Muhlenberg County tonight. Samantha Johnson, 14 News.
All right, Sam, thanks a lot. I'm joined now by Lisa Feinstein. And Lisa, it sounds like that Sam saw in Bremen a lot of the kind of things that we saw here and met a lot of the kind of people that we're meeting here. Just neighbors trying to help neighbors for a very difficult time.
Right. I talked to Anita and Greg Black. Now, their home is almost completely gone. They let me walk through them with the wreckage to show me what was left, but they still met me with a smile on their face. They were still so happy to see me. And, you know, kind of similar to Jessica's story, they were just happy to still be alive. This is a walkthrough of what used to be Anita and Greg Black's kitchen, living room, and the rest of their home. Anita says they took shelter in their neighbor's basement across the street.
There were 4 adults and we had 2 dogs, and we had been there maybe 2 minutes, just long enough to pray. We had a nice prayer, and then it was here, and it hit, and then it was over in just seconds.
And in just seconds, the storm tore through homes. Anita says they were prepared because of the warnings on the TV.
Kept hearing the meteorologist say that it was catastrophic. He kept saying that 7 or 8 times, and so we knew we best get down to the basement when they said, he came across there and said, if you live in Dawson Springs, you need to take cover now.
But she says nothing could have really prepared her for what she saw when she emerged from the basement.
You know, when you're in the beach and a wave crashes over you, you know how it takes you a few seconds to, you feel helpless maybe, and you're trying to regain and get back up to the surface.
As she looks around at the area surrounding her home, she sees lives lost, including an elderly woman Anita says lived alone.
And that breaks my heart because I just know she was scared and didn't probably have anywhere to go at the time, and she didn't survive. Her neighbors found her, and then her next door neighbors also. It was another couple that passed away.
Although most of the Blacks' things are gone, Anita says that's all they are, just things that can be replaced.
I'm grateful to God that protected us and that he got us through that, and we're gonna survive. This is stuff. We've lived here for 31 and a half years, and it's just, there are things, and so we're just grateful to be alive.
Now, I got a list from first responders talking about the types of supplies they're kind of in need of here in Dawson Springs. We're working on a list to compile that to put on our website, 14news.com. Randy?
Lisa, thanks a lot. Nice work. You know, Friday night, I was on the air with Chief Meteorologist Jeff Lyons and Meteorologist Byron Douglas for more than 7 hours. We were interpreting this storm, Jeff, through radar images and some of the photos and videos that were trickling in that night. Now we're seeing it firsthand in real time, in real life.
It's worse than even what it looked like on the radar. I think that's the takeaway here, and just walking around trying to kind of conceptualize the damage, the extent of it. I think I've seen tornado damage before, of course, but this is something of a different level.
It's another level.
Yeah, it
really
is complete, at least through this portion of Dawson Springs. At least some better news is that it's going to warm up this week. The crews working out here should have ample time and better weather as they move forward here. Some rain coming, though, by the end of the week.
All right. Jackie?
Of course, many people are seeing the destruction that you've just shown us, and they're asking how they can help. There are so many churches and organizations that have stepped in to collect donations. Drives are being held in nearly every county, and there's also a fund set up by the state of Kentucky. That fund has already surpassed $2 million raised in just under 48 hours. We have a full list of how you can help and ways to help on 14news.com.
Queen Elizabeth II has died. She was 96 and had just celebrated 70 years on the throne back in June. Mary Maloney has more on the global loss.
Outside Windsor Castle, a new wall is forming of flowers. Massive waves of mourners descending on palaces across the UK. Royal symbols of power turn to a place of grieving for people paying their respects to the longest reigning British monarch.
Because she's our queen. Always will be.
Britain's new prime minister paying tribute in a press conference saying, quote, "She ascended the throne just after the Second World War. She championed the development of the Commonwealth from a small group of 7 countries to a family of 56 nations spanning every continent of the world. We are now a modern, thriving, dynamic nation. Through thick and thin, Queen Elizabeth II provided us with the stability and the strength that we needed. She was the very spirit of Great Britain, and that spirit will endure." The Queen's son Charles has now ascended to the throne, His Majesty officially taking the name King Charles III. The new king issuing a statement on his mother's death saying, "I know her loss will be deeply felt throughout the country, the realms, and the Commonwealth, and by countless people around the world. During this period of mourning and change, my family and I will be comforted and sustained by our knowledge of the respect and deep affection in which the Queen was so widely held." I'm Mary Maloney reporting.
According to NBC, the United Kingdom will now go into a 10-day mourning period. All comedy programs will be pulled from their main broadcasting company, the BBC. The Queen's body will lie in state at Westminster Hall prior to her funeral for the public to pay their respects. After the funeral, she will be laid to rest next to her late husband, Prince Philip, at Windsor Castle. The Queen's death has been felt internationally, from the crowds at Buckingham Palace to right here in the tri-state. William Lismore is an English teacher at Memorial High School. Lismore grew up in the eastern part of England near the University of Evansville's study abroad partner, Harlexton College. Because of the time difference, Lismore says he hadn't gotten the chance to speak to his family in the United Kingdom since the news broke out, but he says he surprised himself with his own reaction.
It weighed a little bit on me. It would be similar to the way I explained it to the students in my classes, is that it's a bit, if you hear like someone in your best friend's family died, you wouldn't be in tears, but you'd feel it, you'd really feel it.
Despite his reaction surprising him, Lismore says once he saw that the Queen's family was called up to Scotland, he knew something big was happening.
Yeah, the thing that tipped me off the most, though, was the pictures of people leaving flowers in London at Buckingham Palace. And I thought, there's something going on that people know more than I do right now. I thought, okay, this is pretty serious.
Lismore says that it feels strange now to say that there is a king of England rather than a queen, because throughout his and his parents' lives, they've only had a queen. More Tri-State connections to England are reacting to the passing of the Queen. Harlexton College is a Victorian manor house an hour north of London. The college is also a study abroad center for the University of Evansville. The staff there say it was an emotional moment when they heard the announcement of the Queen's passing. They say many staff members are from the UK, but the Queen loomed large in everyone's lives, whether they were from there or not.
She's important to all of us. Whether she's in your daily life or not, like personally, you feel her kind of presence and love for the nation.
They say it was an emotional day at the college, leaving many in tears. Carter tells us they're already working on plans to leave cards at Buckingham Palace from the University of Evansville. The Queen and Kentucky shared a common bond, a love for horses. Queen Elizabeth visited the state 3 times, twice in the 1980s and then in 2007 for the Kentucky Derby. When she and Prince Philip attended the Derby, they were treated to a big Southern-style meal. During each of her stays, she stayed at Lane's Inn Farm in Woodford County.
Is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Every year you hear the usual, get a mammogram if you're at a certain age. Early detection is still your best bet. Over the last month, 14 News has talked with individuals with a special connection to breast cancer.
Do your research, be an advocate for yourself, and do what you need to do to survive.
Evansville nurse Gina Lynn fought breast cancer and won. She was first diagnosed in 2011.
I knew those words were coming.
On the heels of losing her father to lung cancer, Lynn says she got a mammogram to confirm what she already suspected.
He was more important at the time.
Lynn was diagnosed a few months after her father's death, and doctors told her she had a 20% chance of survival.
My mother was still grieving the loss of her husband. My sister and brother were also still grieving the loss of my father. So it was just in shock and numbness, really.
Lynn says if you are not going through something like this, to still seek preventative care. Early detection is the best chance at fighting cancer. To meet the needs of those with busy schedules, mobile clinics such as Deaconess Mobile Breast Center provides 3D mammography.
It's a mobile unit, so it's in a big van essentially that has a mammogram machine there.
Dr. Amber Kuhn is with Deaconess and says they recommend those with low risk begin getting mammograms at the age of 40, and some of higher risk begin at 35 and go yearly after that.
1 in 8 women develop breast cancer in their lifetime, which is really common and frequent.
Dr. Kuhn says they offer this service so they can get more patients than they typically do at the hospital.
So those early screenings allow for us to do smaller surgeries and allow for us to prolong their life.
While they say appointments are required, they hope their services help meet those who need it where they are. After 2.5 years battling, Lynn says she got the all clear.
It was amazing. What I had went through was not for nothing.
For those that aren't going through this right now, Lynn says,
to lean on your loved ones, your family, to make sure that you follow through with what your physicians are recommending.
Doctors offer multiple options to fight breast cancer. One of the more common is the removal of breast tissue. When someone loses all or part of their breast due to breast cancer, it can be a real knock to your confidence. That's where one Evansville permanent makeup artist comes in.
They tell me, looking at myself in the mirror, that it's like this glaring reminder of this horrible time that they went through or these things that they experienced, and I feel like it's giving that back as well.
Addison Edge is an Evansville permanent makeup artist. She offers paramedical tattooing, where she tattoos a realistic-looking areola.
A person who I had never tattooed before came in and just randomly asked me, she was like, I have a weird question, do you tattoo nipples?
Edge is glad when her clients are happy for a sense of normalcy in their lives after her work is done.
They're not just seeing surgical scars or whatever when they look in the mirror. It's kind of like it tricks your brain and you don't immediately just see that.
When clients come to her, Edge wants to make sure that they know this is a team effort between her and them.
Like, I've got a set of photos that I keep to show them. I'm like, they could look like this, or this, which do you like better?
She asks her clients not to be afraid and to speak up.
I try to make sure that everyone knows, like, I have planned out this time for you. Don't ever think that, like, you can't say if you don't like something. I really try very hard to make sure everybody feels very comfortable in my space.
To find Edge's portfolio and a full list of services, we have a link on our website, 14news.com.
So police tell us that yesterday, a veteran by the name of Ron Williams was robbed with most of his belongings cleared from his home. Today, Williams now has truckloads of new belongings, and we were there to see him receive them. A lot can change in 24 hours. For Ron Williams, he went from being robbed to having everything and more replaced. All thanks to the kindness and generosity of the tri-state community.
I'm a veteran. I'm a blind veteran.
This is what I look through to survive.
Williams says he ran an errand, and when he got back, everything he owned was gone.
Every single thing. I had no plates, no cups, no silverware, no towels, no wash rags, no dish soap, no cleaning supplies.
When authorities in Evansville found out about what happened, they jumped into action.
Community, we've had several donations. We've had clothing items, we've had food, we've had dinners brought over, and just to see the community outreach come together for somebody that they don't know and make something special happen for Thanksgiving. It's a sight to see. It's unbelievable.
From 8 o'clock this morning until right now, and even more, they haven't stopped. These officers are coming in left and right, bringing everything that you see now in front of me.
Even though not everything worked out quite like Williams hoped it would, including bonding his son out of jail in time for the holiday, people in Evansville are hoping that this gesture means things are looking up for Williams and his family.
Thank you. Thank you so very much. You are a human being. You have a tough job, but in reality, when you take that badge off at night and you go home, you're just like me.
If you'd like to donate, the Evansville Vanderburgh Central Dispatch says you can bring those donations to Dispatch or to EPD.